To get rid of those pesky ads, request stories, listen to unlisted and bonus episodes, and to chat with the gang, support us by clicking the description link.
Jen, what are we drinking today?
So this is from a local brewery, Ghost Monkey Brewery. The name is For Fox's Sake, and it is a sake lager.
Yeah,
I think it's really good.
And Nicole found me this 80-second Airborne mug.
It's so cool. She found a set of them.
Too, yeah.
Well, it's so cool until you've been in the 82nd, and then it just sucks.
Yeah.
Don't you think this is a nice Goodwill find?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. This is the old logo for them. I'm pretty sure the 82nds changed their logo.
Vintage.
Did you taste this? You want?
This will sell. I mean, I know we're not going to sell it. Did you watch these?
Yeah,
Yes.
she did.
Oh, good.
Well, with monkeypox going around, you can't be too careful.
We have quite a few folks on here. We've got Wolfie, Shram, let's see, Martin,
Jesus.
Ashley, Natasha,
Damn, everyone's excited to hear this.
Sarah. Sarah's new, I believe.
Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
Sarah. Well, shit, I better put a story together real quick. I'm just kidding. I don't have one. I'm just kidding. I got one.
These guys will be here all the time. One time at Goodwill, I found a large glass jar with weed in them, Shamarama said.
That's amazing.
Only in California, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's too funny.
That's amazing.
So what's up, all you guys? Oh my gosh, there's so many people on. That is
I'm good.
crazy. What's up, everybody? This is episode trace of our best friend BF, Bob Berdella. All right, dude, check out this right quick. So I've seen some photos of Bob Berdella. What is his name?
Berdella.
Bob Berdella. But I've never, ever seen this photo. This is freaking epic. Let me know what you guys think of this one right here. How about that one?
Wow.
He's reminds me of that statue with the guy.
The thinker.
Yeah, the thinker. There you go.
Is this like a
posing for?
JC Penney special where you go to the
But
photos?
it's by himself. Like,
This is a
There's
year.
nothing against the rules that says you can't get a personal photo shoot, though.
The
Is this
caps-
for his, like,
is it
store?
for Bob's Bizarre
Well,
Bazaar?
hold on. No. So
His bizarre, you mean?
the caption reads as follows. This series of studio portraits was taken in the fall of 1987 by Linda Rice, co-owner of Color Classics. Berdella had the pictures made as a Christmas present for his parents. Of the half-hour portrait session, she said, quote, "He's real good in front of a camera. He knew exactly what he wanted. I've been..."
Wait, and it was this?
Yeah,
This is exactly what he wanted?
I guess so.
Blue Steel.
I'm sorry, like, that's...
Awesome.
Do you think he played that song, I'm Too Sexy Boy?
Was it out by then? Right Said Fred, when were they around?
Gosh. I don't know. I feel like that's close.
But, I mean, this is like... I want that one with the sombrero on his head so I can hang it in my office as, like, someone I know.
That is crazy.
That's special. That is a very special gift that you gave us.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's get into some BF. What does BF stand for?
Best friend.
Best friends. Either that or what's the other one that stands for?
Butt fucking.
Butt fucking.
It is butt fucking. Also, FRT, F does not mean fart fuck. It means front fuck. Just in case you're wondering. I thought it meant fart fuck, which is the same as a butt fuck. But
No, it's not. That's not a real thing, is it?
in my head, where I
Oh,
just made up
God,
the
dude.
term, it is.
I hate that word. We don't say the F word in this house at all.
Not the FART word.
Correct.
Yeah.
It is poot in this house.
And that is all it is.
I know. Like, after living here for some time, I also stopped saying fart, and I only...
Why are you saying it now? You know it.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to... Because it's come
Drop
back
the
to me.
F-bomb, Jen. God.
Remember, all right, on last episode, I told you about the photographs, and we're going to see all the photographs that are out tonight, the Polaroids. But do you remember I said that the Polaroids actually had some of his body parts in it, like his belly, for example, or maybe his thigh. So the detectives they got a search warrant for his body.
I didn't know you could do that.
Well, all right, here's a question.
I guess that makes sense.
Here's a trivia question. What other serial killer had a search warrant for a specific part of his body as
Can we
well?
answer?
No. The detectives made Bob strip down and perform every one of the Polaroids again in the detective room, in the interrogation room. And it was obviously really embarrassing for him. him. And that's why they did it. They got the search warrant because he had to strip naked. And then, for instance, there was a stool. They brought in a stool. He had to spread his knees apart and recreate having anal sex with this stool. This is serious. He really had to do this.
Sorry, I had to do a mental double take because I was listening and then I was like, okay. So he had to BF and FRT FU in these photos with a stool.
No, FF. FF is front fuck. I don't know. Yes, he had to do that. Also, the detective put out his finger and he had a glove on because no one wants freaking Ron Jeremy to touch you, you know? So he has a glove on and Bob Berdella had to pretend was a carrot because in one of the photos, Bob Berdella has a carrot. And this photo, I was reading about it, it took a long time to get because he wouldn't do his arm right. Like he was grasping a carrot like this. So they had to like redo the shot numerous
I was going
times.
to ask if he like tried to like fake like he didn't do it. Be like, is this how you do it? And I was about to say like a guy that's comfortable in front of a camera like that is not going to be able to fake it because it's just so natural for him. So
I do like that picture with him like this. I'm going to recreate that picture and hang him up here.
That could be a gift.
Christmas
you
card.
could do a like print it side by side.
Yeah.
We need to take John to like
we each recreate one and have them side by side.
yes, and it'll be our Christmas cards, our
love
holiday
it.
cards.
Yeah, and we'll send them to all the Supremos. I
Who
love
gets
that.
to wear the
dude.
sombrero?
I love that.
I'll do the one where he's holding it over his heart if you want.
We're actually starting with the second victim tonight. Remember we stopped... Wait, where did we stop last week?
We were talking about the first victim. We talked about the last victim, and then we talked about the first victim.
How many victims are there?
All right. This is Robert Sheldon. He is the third victim. You see, this is one of the Polaroids. He is the caption here from the Kansas City Police Department. Robert Sheldon, after being drugged into unconsciousness by Berdella. So you see him there. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a very mild photo.
Yeah.
From what you're going to see. And with these photos, it's important to look at the shock value of their eyes, especially because they're getting tortured. Not this guy, obviously.
Right.
But, I mean, he was getting tortured, but he's unconscious.
Well, that's one of the questions I had yesterday. Like, how do you, in these pictures, because you said there were different pictures, like ones when they're sleeping, ones with them unconscious, one with them dead. Like how it, like you can't necessarily tell in the pictures.
Yeah, I know. You can't tell. That's true. I'm going to read this as a quote from Bob Berdella. He says, quote, Robert first showed up at my house April 10th and died on April 14th. He died basically in the same manner and cause that Jerry Howell died. We covered the Jerry Howell victim last time, and that's the one that was strung up. This guy was strung up, and remember, it was his first kill by Berdella, so he didn't do the torture thing.
Yeah, he was hanging upside down.
Yes, and then he was basically drained.
Yeah.
So that was before Bob Berdella got into his routine. A lot of these victims, most of them, and there were 7, most of the victims die from some part of the torture method, and they don't know the exact causes because they only found the skulls. But most people think it's because the vomit, they would choke on their own vomit while the gag is in their mouth type of thing, and that would kill them. But Bob did take all those notes in his journal, so we do see when they died, but we just don't know how they died. But he does say that on this one specifically that he did put a trash bag over this man's head and let that do the trick. Now he would put the bag over his head and then go like feed his dogs. So that's what a psychopath is. Like it's just something to do. Like it's another task. Okay, I gotta kill this guy right quick. I gotta put the bag on his head and I gotta feed the dogs. Like there's no empathy there, right? It's kind of crazy.
On the to-do list.
Yeah, unless he had ADHD, which, I mean, like, for me personally, I suffer kind of with, like, I'll be doing a task and, like, I could be doing my dishes and then I remember, oh, crap, I have to take the trash out, and I'll stop what I'm doing and take the trash out, and then I'll come back and then I'm like, oh, but since I'm taking the trash out, I might as well do the recycling. And if I'm doing the recycling, then I need to make sure that I take everything out of my car. And if I take everything out of my car, I should probably vacuum my car out type of, you know what I mean?
Oh God, that gave me anxiety.
It is anxiety provoking, yes.
Jesus Christ. Now, I want to read that one one last thing again. So he says, on that one, the Sheldon one, Sheldon died when I put a trash bag over his head, tied it, and allowed him to suffocate. So he used the word allowed. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah.
He's in control.
I mean, I'm not saying
He's in control, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think a regular person would use the word allow. Oh, I allowed him to suffocate, you know? Yeah, I don't know. It just sounds kind of weird to me. Anyway.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Robert Sheldon was once a boarder, and like a lot of the victims, he was a drug addict as well. And
Something flew on my face.
fuck, dude, you just hit yourself in the face?
A bug flew on my nose. Like it
So
was.
you like popped yourself in the face? Did that not hurt?
No, I mean, it was better than having a bug on my nose.
Did you get it?
I think so.
It's still there.
No, it's not.
Use your fist.
Shut up.
Cut it with this box cutter. That's fucked. Robert Sheldon showed up because he wanted to buy some Thorazine from Bob Berdella. Remember I said, so Bob Berdella had all the best drugs because he has 3 chow chows, and most of those drugs that people couldn't get and only can get from Bob Berdella were the animal tranks. And those things put you out completely. And people like that. I guess the druggies back then loved that. I don't think that's the thing anymore. Maybe it is. So from time to time, this guy did live with Bob as a boarder, $125 a month. So they did know each other, right?
That's pretty reasonable.
Yeah. But even then, Robert Sheldon failed to pay rent, and then one day he was just gone. But then he would show up 2 years later and, you know, spark a friendship again, and Bob would let him move in, and then the same thing happens. So in Bob's mind, these people that he's being nice to and getting off the street and letting live in his house and have to deal with them not paying rent and then being drunk all the time and whatever, like they're using him. So when it comes time to kill this guy, putting a bag over his head is, you know, kind of what he deserves in Bob's mind. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. This is the journal before the Sheldon murder reads as follows. Quote, RS on binge, which means that Robert Sheldon was staying at the house and he's binge drinking again, not paying rent, just complete drunk all the time. An hour or so later after he wrote that, Bob Berdella injected him in the neck with animal tranquilizers.
How long do those take to kick in? Because it's weird. when you
Pretty
think-
quick, I guess.
When you think about dosages in animals, like for dogs, you have to cut a human dose because it's a smaller being. So I wonder how much you would have to give a person of an animal tranquilizer.
At this point, Bob Berdella takes off his own pants and Robert Sheldon's pants because Sheldon is now unconscious. He is out. This animal trank has got him. So now all Bob's got to do is bring him to the second floor and tie him up, put a dog collar on him, start his thing. The next entry was, quote, 11:15, and the journal entry beside it said BF, which means best friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's what best friends do, right? I mean,
At 11:25, so 10 minutes later, was the next entry, and that entry said DC. Anyone want to take a guess what DC is?
something cucumber. Dick carrot, dick cucumber.
Dick Carrot.
I feel like Jen's onto something. I mean,
We know he used vegetables.
yeah.
We also know he used drain cleaner.
Oh yeah, Drano.
DC stands for drain cleaner
oh boy.
in the eye with the cotton swabs.
Oh yeah,
And he would swab it in his eyes.
yeah. That's terrible.
What's wrong with you?
We don't like to think about it.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
But you're right though. Like compared to like our first couple episodes of reactions, I'm just like, oh.
But the detective asked, quote, now, when you say drain cleaner, are you referring to something like Drano? Bob Berdella says the following. Yes, it was a cotton swab of the drain cleaner. I placed it in his left eye, and I did that to obviously damage his eye and cause some pain.
Well, at least he's being honest.
Berdella said, as if the question were an unnecessary one, perhaps getting into being able to permanently damage his eyes, which would have then made it easier to keep him and control him. That's what Bob Bob Berdella says. So if I can damage his eyes, I can keep him. So at this point, he's starting to, and this is third, so he's starting to refer to these people as captives. He knows he can't let them go. He already decided that because they would just go to the cops.
He's in it now.
Yeah, exactly. So he's in it. So, I got to keep him. I might as well control him. And what's the best way to do that is cut off his senses. You take the eyes out, at least temporarily blind them. Remember I said the thing about the caulk? You caulk their ears so they can't hear anything. You know what I'm saying? And then you put Drano, shoot it into their vocal cords so they can't speak. You got like everything here, right?
Touch and smell left.
Now, this was the first time Robert Sheldon was the first victim that I believe Bob Berdella really knew in his mind that, okay, I am the master. I get to keep this guy. And this is the only one that he actually branded. He branded this man with a tattoo using a hot needle and ink while Sheldon was unconscious. Bob Berdella tattooed the word hot, H-O-T, on his back left shoulder. Quote, I think the act was putting my mark on him, but what I put on him wasn't significant. He just wanted to tattoo anything so he would be branded to him. He put the word hot. Now, he was really attracted to Robert Sheldon. He did say that a few times, but it's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sheldon wakes up. He's pleading for his life. The next journals read as follows: S and then a space and then W. Y'all won't guess that, so I'll tell you what it is. That means soap and water enema. Remember I showed you the actual enema that they were using? That came right before another journal entry that said CF, which is
Carrot fuck.
Carrot fuck.
I can guess pretty much anything that ends in F in these journals, and that's about it.
Okay.
John gets an absolute kick out of it when you say it, though. He gets so giggly.
The whole episode, I'm just going to loop you saying carrot fuck, carrot fuck, carrot fuck, carrot fuck. Do like different. Carrot fork. So he does give an enema before this. Now, the thing about the carrots and the cucumbers, he would do interchangeably. Usually with cucumbers, he would do C-U-C-F for cuke, and then carrot would just be CF. But I want to say...
So he really should have called it a cuck fuck.
Yeah.
Instead of a cuke fuck. It doesn't sound as good.
I want to say that he was not doing this for sexual gratification. He was doing it for dominance. Later, you remember last time we read that, if with Chris Bryson, what did he say? If you're good, then I'll buy you cigarettes and maybe I'll stop by the movie store and rent a movie for you. Like you're captive and you're telling him if you're good, you'll rent a movie. So
It's like Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, he's doing this to completely break down this captive because he wants that puppy dog that walks around,
Yeah.
And he pretty much got it. Like some of these guys play ball, they did that. They were like, whatever, man, I'll be your slave type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Chris Bryson's the only one that he was like, I got to get the hell out of here. I was reading some more of his interview. He said Bob Berdella actually put on one of the basketball games. It was like the finals or playoffs or something like whatever it is. And one of the basketball players said something about, you got to stay motivated or whatever. And that's what motivated Chris Bryson to get out. Kind of interesting. He and Bob Berdella had that on in the background. But most of these guys, they accepted it, which is, you're getting fucked with carrots. You got electric shocks going into your testicles. Like, what the fuck? In your eyeballs? Crazy shit. Well, he said that when Chris Bryson cut off his ropes, he ran to the window expecting it to be all locked and bolted. The thing basically fell out of the freaking thing.
Yeah.
He said that the window lifted right up. He was like, what the hell? So you can see that Bob Berdella is really not, he's really not taking the time to do things right.
Either that or he was just overly confident in his knot tying abilities and the fact that no one would test him to do that. He probably was banking on the fact that his captives eventually would just give up and not try to escape.
Later that morning, in the journal, it reads as follows. Acupuncture with needles. Quote, I tried to see what kind of response using regular hypodermic needles of pain spots or where the spots he would react to. Now, Bob Berdella found a couple spots that worked best. And one of those spots were putting that little needle, a tiny little needle, under your fingertips.
Oh, I don't like that.
So think about a lot of little needles under, like you kind of pull your skin back.
I'd rather not.
On your finger. And
Nope.
and you can, there's that little space right there. You're putting, and these are acupuncture needles. These are actual, because remember, he has that shop, so he has access to this stuff.
Right.
So he has these acupuncture needles, and he's putting, I don't know, probably 100 in every, in the entire two hands under the fingernails. And he's probably pushing them in there pretty far. That would be kind of bad.
Is it bad that I think that so far that's one of his worst torture techniques?
Skeeves me out. Yeah, that's...
Well, this is one of his first, too. Remember, we had started with, like, the last. He's already got his thing. So now he's building it up. He's trying things. You know how serial killers, they try things.
Yeah.
That's why the MO changes. They're like, oh, I didn't like choking her to death with, you know, her shoestring. I'm going to just use, or my hands. Next time I'm going to use a shoestring or whatever. That's why the MO changes. So he's trying things. Later that night, he uses the letters EK, which in all the other entries, it would be EKG for the electric shocks, right? Mm-hmm. And this is interesting. This is another one of the innovative things that he did. He took two needles and stuck them in the back of Robert Sheldon and connected the wires to those and had him the electricity so he can kind of see it go straight into the body. Later, remember, he'd use a spatula, which is even smarter because he can move it around.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the next day, he binded his hands so tight with a piano wire. And the reason he did that was, quote, to cause nerve damage to the hands so that if I ever did untie him, he wouldn't have control or be able to use his hands. So, I mean, the piano wire is very thin.
Yeah,
very thin.
Is it thinner than like a guitar string?
The very lowest. Well, Schramer could probably tell us, but the very lowest, not the G string, but the carrot string.
Womp womp.
The E, right below the G string, actually is right. EADGBE. Yeah. No. Yeah. That string is very thin. So a piano wire is even thinner. It's like a fishing line, or probably even thinner than that.
And it's usually strung so tightly.
Yeah. So that's around your wrist. All your circulation's cut off. I mean, and that causes nerve damage, I guess, from what Bob thought.
And so he's already bound them with this piano wire, and that's when he's...
No, this was before. According to this journal, it was the next day.
Oh.
So this being the third victim, he just decides that he's done with it. He puts a trash bag over his head and secures it with a rope, and lets them kind of suck in and die. So that's how he does this. Now and we're going to get to probably the worst one here in a second. This guy actually, I'll tell you right now, there was a captive we're going to talk about, Larry Pearson, who actually bit his penis, Bob Berdella's penis. So you imagine like the rage that is going to come out in that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
I feel like that was smart, but also not smart to do.
Oh, yeah.
Like smart as in it could have helped you try to get away in that moment, but not smart because going forward would make your life even worse.
So we talked about the background and everything last time. The basic MO with this guy is on the surface, he's a good guy. And like I said, I mean, ironically, if it wasn't for the murder stuff and the rape and torture, he does do good things for the community. Like real good things. Like he was taking in, as an adult, he was taking in troubled teens and getting them straightened out. Like he was really helping people, but he's just sexual.
I'm trying
to just had this like one little flaw.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, just
but
great guy.
One of his boarders who made it out, it wasn't a sex victim. said, quote, Bob tried to control young people primarily by loaning them money through rent and utilities, car loans, housing them when they were in trouble, stuff like that. So remember we talked about the guy last time, Jerry Howell. He was in trouble with the police. He needed a lawyer, so he went and contacted Bob, and Bob was like, yeah, sure, let me help you out, type of thing. He did that to kind of get him in the door, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Also, I feel like by being a decent human outside of the torturing and murdering, like it would kind of take the spotlight away from him as a suspect. Had Bryson not gone out, like if
no one would suspect him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a common theme amongst serial killers.
Well, that's a good point. So this is the only home that Bob has been living here since a junior, okay? Since he was a junior in college. A long time.
Right.
Over
He
20
bought his
years.
own house.
Yeah. So when you just said that, the community is the South Hyde Park. Bob actually set up personally, this is before the murders and before he even started probably even thinking about doing this stuff. He actually set up the Crime Watch program for the entire South Hyde Park, which is not just his neighborhood, but all the surrounding neighborhoods. And he was the liaison, and he was working with the cops and getting crime off the street. He was like turning kids that were getting into drugs, like teenagers, and turning them around. It's crazy because what happened, like all of a sudden in the 80s it's just like boom, he's and he was not the guy he probably had the Ron Jeremy stash, but in those photos that you see, the only photos you see, he's overweight. He's like, he was apparently a good looking guy, thin, kind of ambitious, he bought his own house as a junior, and so what happened?
Yeah, like it's like a switch went off.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if he had a bad incident with one of his boarders and was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna start killing people.
Well, I don't think I put this in here, but it is good to know this as far as the background. I don't know if I talked about this last time, but when he was 16, he was a short order cook. Remember I said that? He was sexually assaulted in some way, I don't know, rape or whatever, by an older gentleman that he worked with. I don't know if that may have had something to do with it. He said, he talks about like his dad beating him and stuff like that, but I'm telling you, the way he talks about it, I don't think I think it was a little bit emotional and physical abuse, but dude, I don't think it was anything. From what I saw, the family was pretty decent, he's got a younger brother, 8 years younger, that didn't turn out to be like this. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. So anyway, let's get into the next victim, Mike Wallace, and he does some interesting things here. I'm just going to read this. Quote, I found him out, Mike Wallace, in the back of my tool shed hiding from the rain. I brought him into the house at first with his desire. I drugged him and then further drugged him to make him captive. He, on the second day that he was in my house, basically died the same way Howell did when I had put a new gag in and re-drugged him. He apparently asphyxiated, so choked on his vomit. So this guy was depressed, Mike Wallace. And Bob didn't know this guy, but he found him outside of his house in the shed trying to get out of the rain. Bob Berdella didn't really know Mike Wallace, but Mike Wallace knew him as a drug dealer because he was there trying to get a shot of ketamine. That's what he wanted. So Bob gave him a shot of animal tranquilizers instead and one shot of ketamine. And then, and I'm going to read this, quote, I injected him several times and one shot of ketamine. Once he was out, I had anal sex with him once with a carrot. That's what he says, once with a carrot. Next came the front fucking, as the journal says, and a little notation that says alligator clips. Those clips go on his nipples. Nicole's like, what the fuck?
Yep.
I just that face you just made was like reevaluating your life choices. You were like, well, how did I get...
It's kind of like the beginning of one of those 80s or 90s movies. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation. Well,
holy shit.
Let me tell you.
This stuff doesn't even faze me, man.
No, to be
you're just reading down the list.
To be totally honest, I was listening, but I kind of zoned out for 30 seconds, and then I heard alligator clips, and I'm like, okay, this is where we are right now.
After the anal sex with a carrot came the front fucking and a notation with alligator clips. The clips go on the nipples, and that's a sadomasochistic practice. The clips on the nipples, and then the transformer gets hooked up. That's 7,700 volts. Bob Berdella hits the back of Wallace's head with a metal or with a rubber mallet to, quote, cause a little disorientation. Now he hits him firm, but not like hard as he can, because he just wanted to do a mild concussion. That's what Bob says. Then more anal sex, then more needle play in the fingertips, and then he noticed that Mark Wallace was dead. Let's talk a little bit about his psychology, and then we'll get to the last victim, the one that bit Bob Berdella's carrot. Bob Berdella met with this doctor in prison, and he didn't want to talk to anyone, but this doctor was a psychiatrist, and he was generally interested in why someone would do this. He wasn't going to go sell the information as one of the people did. Mm-hmm. He wasn't going to go turn it in to the police and use it against them. This guy was just really interested and wanted to find out what was wrong with Bob or whatever. And this is how we know about his psychology, because he did for once open up to this guy. So basically, the findings are this, and this does kind of tie into his background, but Bob Berdella never accepted the blame for it, even in prison. So it's stuff like, oh, that guy, yeah, I let him live at my house rent-free for a year, and then he stole some of my stuff. Yeah, so every...
Seems a little extreme.
Every victim is screwed him over in some way. It's more of Bob versus the world. It's and I think for Bob, he's a psychopath, so he doesn't
Bob
really
Bob Eats World.
He really does not have any empathy or whatever. But a lot of these killers, I think they do it because the crimes are so horrible that they did that they can't rationalize the thought that they had control in doing it. Remember Jeffrey Dahmer? I mean, I know he was a psychopath too, but like he could not rationalize that he literally did all those things. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So he made up this other thing. And so for Bob, it's like the world's against me. Everyone's trying to screw me over type of thing. His father did love sports, but Bob was never athletic. And that was one of the things. The younger brother, 8 years younger, got all the attention. The father didn't even care about Bob at all. And a few times I saw that, and this is what he's opening up to the psychiatrist, that his father was physically and emotionally abusive. There was no drugs or alcohol in the family. He was raped at 16, as I said, where they grew up in Cuyahoga, Ohio. And as a line cook, he was assaulted in some way. In 1982, Bob talks about how he became emotionally invested in this Vietnam veteran who had a lot of substance and emotional PTSD type of problems. Mm-hmm. And that relationship really stuck with him. And I don't know what happened. He didn't get into the details, but it was traumatic for him, whatever it was. He never disclosed anything other than that. This is from what the psychiatrist says, quote, in general, Mr. Berdella has never been comfortable with homosexual individuals and has some significant degree of ambivalence about these relationships. Just like Dahmer, right? Just like not all. A lot of the killers that we covered that, okay, it's like, obviously you're homosexual because your victims are men, but they don't want to admit it. And I think a lot of it is because their religious backgrounds. Like his father is Irish Catholic, although Bob Berdella was pretty much atheist. That still weighs on him. And remember, Jeffrey Dahmer is the same way. Like God, remember he had that 2-year struggle, and that was with his homosexuality,
shame,
guilt. But at the end of the day, your victims are men, and that's what you know what I'm saying? Like just admit it. Like,
well, I mean,
I don't know. That's not my forte.
I can see that, but I can also see how they may not be homosexual. They may be like bi-curious or have some sort of interest in exploring their sexuality, but that doesn't necessarily make them gay. But it could be, for example, his father was, Irish Catholic, and he was raised that way. And because he was raised that way, and I'm not saying him specifically, because in this case he did perform homosexual acts. on his victims, but like he could be killing them. You know, some serial killers could be killing homosexuals because they have it could be a hate crime. The same way that some serial killers target other sex workers because they feel, you know, it's kind of, they're kind of in their terms like cleansing society of, you know, these things that shouldn't be done. So
Interesting.
The Green River Killer is like that.
That's who I was thinking of. Yeah,
I'm helping society. I killed 30 prostitutes. I mean, okay. I know when to shut up here. All right. So Bob Berdella, obviously, he has that Bob's Bizarre Bazaar. He is interested in stuff like Taoism, Buddhism, witchcraft, occult stuff like that. But he's not satanic. They did go down the satanic road, but this was the freaking 80s. So
Everyone went down the
didn't?
satanic road.
satanic panic.
He said he only had to kill because he, quote, burned his bridges and went too far, like I said. For the control of his victims, he said that it, quote, reduced to the level of, say, a blow-up doll or a clay figure you would make as a kid and moving around, having complete control over it. Bob Berdella is known as the Kansas City Butcher and also the Collector, which is kind of a weird moniker. The reason why is because, quote, a film that I saw as a teenager that I guess had a lasting fantasy, a dark fantasy in my mind, was a film called The Collector about a man who lived the fantasy of kidnapping this one woman and then kept her as a captive in a small shed, trying at that point to build up a relationship with her when she was captive. And I think that's probably the first clear event that became a mental fantasy of myself that relates to any of this. There were incidents, thoughts prior to that movie. The movie just gave me the framework to be able to fantasize it, and in 84 I started allowing my dark fantasies to come true. And we're done with Bob Berdella, but one more victim, Larry Pearson. He was the one right before the Chris Bryson who escaped. Now this was the first that he actually drugged this guy's food. That's the first time I saw that, put trank in his food. Quote, he had been staying at my house in the summer of 87, and after a couple weeks, I drugged his food one night, tied him up, kept him in the basement for a week, and then with his cooperation, moved him up to the second floor where he stayed with me and was fully cooperative up until the evening of August the 5th of 1987. This man was completely compliant for a week. He bit Bob's penis so hard that it completely lacerated it. Bob had to go to the emergency room, and
Oh my.
He almost had a John Bobbitt moment.
3 shots of trank at 7:50 p.m. Bob Berdella takes Pearson down to the basement. He puts electrodes up to him and starts the electric shock treatment. At this point, Bob's also referring to these people as patients when he's talking to detectives. He's like, I then hooked up the electrodes to the patient. It's just like weird that he would do that.
Yeah, that is weird.
He then puts Drano in the throat like he always does. He keeps Pearson Tuesday the 23rd through the 28th in his basement. He makes Pearson call him, quote, Master Bob. This was the first time that, and Pearson is the first one that's he's really subservient to Bob. Piano wires on wrist. This is also the first time that Bob actually puts a dog collar on the victim. The next one would be Chris Bryson. And since Pearson is so subservient and loyal to Bob, he actually wears the dog collar, and when he's got to go pee, Bob walks Pearson to the bathroom with the dog leash and the collar. Like, you know, he does this throughout the house. Even
Crazy.
if he's like, and since he's so loyal, he kind of lets him like come down to the kitchen and make a sandwich. And let's go. I got the leash.
But not loyal enough to not be on the leash.
Well, not yet. Yeah, exactly. At night, the leash was tethered to the collar as usual, and then that collar was tethered to the bedpost. So just like a dog, the dog is sleeping right by the bed. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, he's getting this, and this is the last one that he's going to do right before the guy escapes. So, I mean, I can imagine if he would have did 5 more, what it would have looked like.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Kind of crazy.
I don't want to imagine.
Berdella said, quote, one of the things I was teaching him was if I was, there with him and watching TV, I didn't want to be disturbed. I explained to him that if he created a problem, that I would just as soon move him back to the basement, that he would either behave himself or go back to the basement. He didn't want to go back to the basement. So he's kind of referring to him as a dog. Now, Pearson kept disturbing Berdella, and Berdella said, I informed him that he was going to get a couple shots of electricity electricity. He fully cooperated while I gave him 3 shots of electricity. So at that point, like when he was acting up and disturbing Bob during his movie night, Bob gave him 3 shots of electricity, like a child, not a child, but he's disciplining him. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So this guy Pearson actually started pleasing Bob on his own by when he was getting raped, he would be like, I'm bad, or what, he would say he would get into the sex thing to please Bob.
Kind of Pavlovian, ironically.
Yeah.
When you think about him putting a dog collar on.
But when he did that, when he would get rewarded, he would get breakfast and stuff like that. Bob would make him breakfast as a dog. It's crazy. The routine would be, Berdella began, I'd wake up in the morning, have sex with him, prepare the breakfast for both of us, feed him, tie him down while I went to work or ran any errands that I might have ran, gotten back from work, came up, untied him, gave him a couple cigarettes to smoke, and I would always bring a cold drink up to the kitchen when I first came up and allowed him to drink that while I prepared supper or made my phone calls or fed the dogs or whatever else I had to do. Then I would usually just go up and spend the rest of the evening with him unless I had some meeting or errands that I had to run. He would be very cooperative. He would allow me to tie him back down. All right. I said that a week into this training, he completely, nearly severs the tip of Bob's penis, lacerates it so bad that Bob ties him down, goes to the hospital, and they said, sir, you can't not stay. I mean, they said, you need major surgery. You have to be here at least 3 days. And they had to stitch it up and everything. So Bob goes back home. He says he got to check on the dogs. He goes and he does that. He puts food out and whatever. And instead of tying up Pearson, which he was about to do, he says the cab outside, the cab that was going to take him back to the hospital, honked his horn, and in a rush, he just quickly put a bag over his head and killed him. So he didn't want to miss the cab, so he just put a bag over his head and killed him real quick, and then jumped in the cab. How crazy is that?
Sorry, can't be bothered to hook you up to the bed, so I'm just gonna kill you.
This is some of the photographs. This is what you guys been wanting to see now. Yeah. This is Pearson right here. This is his face battered and his right hand broken. So this is what he looks like here. I'll do another one. And you see he's kind of unconscious there. This is a crazy one right here. Larry Pearson. Look at this. Look at the syringes.
Oh my God.
You see the syringes there?
Yeah.
This is the actual photograph. You see how the gag is tied around his arms too?
Yeah.
And then his arms are up. Now, Chris Bryson was tied like this, if you remember. And then he said, Bob, can you please tie my hands in front of me? Because this is very painful. And Bob did. So, and that's the reason he could get out, because he freed his right hand. But that's how the hands were usually tied to begin with. Jeez. So this one says, Larry Pearson, shortly after being captured by Berdella in June 1987, handcuffed, gagged with piano wire, and injected with a hypodermic needle. So this is when he would take the photos, and these photos would complement the journals that we were reading. Wow. This is a crazy one. James Ferris, bound, gagged, and injected. You see all the needles right there?
Oh my God.
The needles are just right there. Now, remember I said these needles right here, as we talked about earlier, were hooked up to the transformer machine. So this is the first time he thought, wow, this would be a lot easier than the alligator clips, which is kind of a hassle. You can't put alligator clip, like on your back, for instance. The alligator clip doesn't really stick on someone that's skinny like that. Yeah. You can't get enough fat. So if you just stick a needle, you can put a needle anywhere and just stick the wire straight up to that. And that's what he was doing with the thing. It's actually very innovative, some of the techniques he used. I'm just saying, because
if you want to call it that.
Well, I've covered a lot of serial killers, and I've never heard anyone do the things he did to like stop them from knowing what's going on, like the blinding them and putting caulk in their ears, stuff like that. Here's this guy, Robert Sheldon. I showed you this one. He just passed out, and this is an unknown one. Couldn't find this guy. I don't know who this was. One of the victims we covered, but that look is what every horror writer tries to write about, but none of them can. In fact, when we covered the I'll never forget this. We covered the 3 Guys, 1 Hammer. They interviewed that horror. He's like this horror guy in Spain. He's like the Rob Zombie of Spain horror. And he said he watched it, and he said, no, he couldn't even watch it. It was an 8-minute video of this guy getting beat. And and that stuff doesn't sell horror at all. Like, no one wants to see that. No one really wants to see that shit. And this is the stuff, like, here. I mean, because it's just too much, man. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Anyway, that's Bob Berdella. That's pretty much all about Bob Berdella. What do you think? Kind of crazy, eh?
Yeah.
He's a wild one.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm done with Bob Berdella. In my opinion, he didn't live up to Dahmer, man, at all. I'm still chasing the high, and I haven't found it yet. I will find it. There's got to be someone worse than Dahmer. I hope you guys enjoyed that. My name is John. This is Talk More Movie Podcast. I'm sitting here with Jen and Nicole, and we release episodes Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We live stream every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. You can also play trivia with us right there in the live chat. And until next time, good night, you lovely, lovely people.